Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to you and Ranking Member Matsui for holding this really important hearing. It's been very interesting, and I appreciate all of your testimony and perspectives. There are a lot of things that have come up, and I think it's been a pretty frank conversation, which is useful because I think it is complicated, and looking at it from the policy perspective, we have to understand the things that are good ideas and the things that are not good ideas. Mr. Schwantes, I'm going to come back to you about that because you tempted all of us saying there were things you wouldn't support, so definitely want to hear more about that in your conversation with Congresswoman Eshoo. But I want to first follow up on something that you just said, Mr. Spellmeyer, when you were talking about the a la carte kind of provisions and options and talking about what's driving these costs and the lack of transparency. And so thinking of it from the consumer perspective, certainly I hear my constituents saying they have choices to buy packages full of things that they don't necessarily want, and that may be a part of why they're not buying the packages at all. They would like something. I know that's one of the suggestions that you made, Mr. Schwantes, to have, you know, just a very basic package that people can get. But what do you think is the likelihood, given the landscape that you're in, that we're going to see that kind of a la carte selection when it comes to your members? And is that something that is going to be just dealt with? Do you think that's something that's really possible in the policy space and in the legislative space that we're talking about here, or that that's going to just continue to evolve as the marketplace has so much over the last decade?
Yeah, so we have tried for several decades at ACA to push programmers to allow us to do a la carte or anything close to a la carte, and it is consistently rejected. You know, it's you take the entire programmer's large aggregated bucket of content and you got to put it all on. And so that I think it's part of the Charter Disney thing. It's part of what Charter wanted to do. They're not a member of mine, but I'll tell you that based on what I understand, they made some progress in terms of getting Disney to allow them to offer a couple of packages that were slightly smaller than the giant packages that are there today. And so maybe a little bit of movement there, but for my members without leverage over the content providers, it's a, you know, sorry, take it or leave it.
Well, thank you for that. And Mr. Schwantes, I want to come back to you because I appreciated your written testimony and sort of suggestions that you made, and you said in your opening statement as well as in your testimony that we need to be thinking about what's working, what's not working. It piqued my interest when you said there's some things I wouldn't do, because I think that kind of insight, knowing how much you're studying this marketplace and understand what consumers want and what's sort of a reasonable landscape. I'm particularly interested in what you don't support, if you want to share that with us, and then also kind of just open it up to you on some of the things that you think sort of are working and are not working. And I guess what I'd love to get a sense of your priorities. What should be our priorities as we're doing this work?
Thank you, Congresswoman Fletcher. I'll start by saying we don't support converting or applying the Cable Act to vMVPDs like Fubo and YouTube TV. That proceeding was started in 2014, and I do agree with my other friends on the panel that the world has changed significantly in 9 years, but I don't think taking an old law from 1992, before we even thought about the internet, and applying it to vMVPDs is the way to go. That said, and this might surprise some folks, we think less regulation could be a good thing, but we have to agree on some core things. There are great things in the broadcaster and cable world that don't apply to YouTube TV and virtual MVPDs, like privacy protections. That is something that we've got strong privacy in cable and broadcast world. That's something, as we take away all the laws, it was just imagine like no Cable Act, how are we going to figure it out? And the things like that, price transparency. What are we going to do on children's programming and educational programming? What are we going to do on privacy? What about diversity? And let's have a conversation about media ownership caps. And then bring it back to low cost. I mean, basic cable was a creation from the 92 Cable Act. It's supposed to be the local channels and some public access channels. That was kind of designed for, like, you know, if you want nothing else, you can get that. If you're a low-income household, if you just want your basic channels. Well, we have in some markets now, the broadcast TV fee is higher than the basic cable fee, and which one is paying for which? And so those plans, I mean, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head. That's not cheap at 50 or 60 bucks a month. But I think that's the conversation we need to have is let's start over. Let's figure out what we can all agree on. And then but as everyone said, it's complicated and it's tough.
Well, thank you so much for that. Thanks to all of you. It is complicated, it's tough, and with 5 minutes, none of us can really get to all of the things that we would like to cover. But I appreciate your insights, and I think this is a really important conversation to have. And I thank you again, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member Matsui, for bringing us together for this hearing today.